Welcome to another episode of Candid Conversations hosted by yours truly, Tech Coach Ralph. In today's episode, we are going to talk about why Tech Coach Ralph, does not talk about manual testing a lot. Is it because that I don't believe in manual testing? Is it because that I don't do manual testing anymore? Am I too good for manual testing now? Do I just outsource any type of manual test that there is? Is it that there is no need for it? You might as well just quit your course, quit your boot camp now if you're doing manual testing and look for something else? Absolutely not. That is totally not the case. I 100% believe in manual testing, but it's only to a certain extent that it's going to get you somewhere, right? So, what do I mean by that? Here's the thing. Manual testing, right? It's the baseline. I don't even call it manual testing, right? Because to me, when you say manual testing, that just means that you're given a set of instructions, and then now you follow those instructions one step by step by step. And if anything along the line is not working as expected, then you raise a red flag and you say, "Hey, I find a problem," and you submit it. And then once they say, "Oh, the problem's fixed," you check that, and that's it. So that is like would be the very specific definition of manual testing, right? I like to use the term comprehensive testing because there is so much more that goes into the quality assurance process than just following a specific set of instructions, right? Back in the days, there would be people who would, like, let's say, write the test cases and then, write the test cases, analyze the site, analyze the requirements, all of that, right? The application, whatever the case may be. And then you would have just manual testers who would take those test cases, then they would execute them, and then they would report back, or they would do some exploratory testing and things like that. However, times have changed, right? My first job, well, not my first job, but my first job in QA, I was, I did like analysis, right? QA analysis. QA analyst was my title, and I would go through, find the, review the requirements, review the specifications, and then like look for the risks and stuff, write the test cases, and then we eventually got like we separated the duties where we'd have manual testers, then they would go through the test cases and report, right? But that was more than 10 years ago, right? Almost like 15 years ago at this point. Times have changed, right? Because companies are doing more with less with the addition of automation. And now with the addition of AI, you can do more with less, right? So if you think you're just going to get away with just being a manual tester, maybe you can like find a job that way. But what is the likelihood, right? Now they're like the role of QA engineer has kind of taken over where now you have the ability to do manual testing, right? You have the ability to analyze site, analyze risks, and then you also have the ability to automate. But wait, there's more. You also have the ability and the knowledge and the intelligence to explore and find out how to do different things. So as me, as a QA engineer, I'm familiar with AWS. I'm familiar with Docker. I'm familiar with TeamCity, Jenkins, a lot of DevOps type stuff, right? Inside of AWS, I have some familiarity with tools like the IAM roles. I've looked at Lambdas. I've looked at Route 53. Um, Not an expert in any of those, not even a beginner, not even a novice in those by any means, right? But I know how to find them. I can quickly scale up if I needed to figure out how to do something, right? And to me, that's what QA engineering is the ability to push forward, the ability to explore, the ability to learn what's needed to get the job done, right? Quick example, if you saw the video months ago about Report Portal, right? We took that and we installed it on AWS on EC2 instance, and we configured it. We sent tests from Java, we send tests from Python. We could probably send tests from what do you call it? From JavaScript, right? And probably we could probably even send tests from like Cypress and Playwright. I'm guessing I haven't tried it yet, which would be a good project to try. I'll put that on my list, right? But the point is that there is like, as a Q engineer, you're thinking about quality metrics, right? The total number of defects. You're thinking about more than just, oh, let me go execute this test case. More than, oh, let me write this test case, right? Like I said, I do manual testing every single day, and I believe that all of us do, right? Whether it's at work or outside work, because you have to make sure things work all around, right? But I also say, all right, what are my opportunities to make my life easier, make my company's life easier, and provide more accurate information, right? So, an example of how I manual test every day, right? So, here's a scenario. We have a story, right, that we're working on, and the developers get okay. So let's start from the beginning, right? So we have a story that we have, right, and we talk about it in refinement. We then inside of a sprint planning before the sprint starts, we bring it into the sprint, and throughout that whole process, I, as a QA engineer, I'm totally involved in the process, right? I'm not like, oh, just waiting around and not saying anything. I'm putting my input, more than 2 cents, right? Saying, hey, how do we envision testing this? Hey, did you think about this? Did you think about that? And number one, like we always preach here, that is how you add value to your team, to the project, to the organization, right? And most importantly, to the customer. That's how you add value, right? Because you're thinking about you're bringing to the table from a customer perspective, from a risk perspective, from a quality perspective, right? Is this easy to use? Does it make sense? What's the customer experience going to be? So you have many different lenses, right? And that's the part as a quality engineer that's so important. But let's keep going a little bit, right? So now the story's in the sprint, and now you start and we're working on the story. We're thinking about, all right, how are we going to test this, right? What are the different scenarios? And you do that early so you can have a conversation with the developers to say, hey, this is how I'm going to approach testing. What do you guys think about that, right? And is there anything that you see that I'm missing? Is there any feedback that you have for that test plan? But and so now you collaborate, but the most important part is the developers are already thinking about in their mind the testing process that you're going to go to. So that way you don't go around like hoping to find bugs. No, the goal is for the developers to have a working software with the least amount of bugs possible so you can deliver value to the customer as early as possible. How does the saying go? On like you deliver early and under budget. And that is what the quality engineer's goal should be, right? How do we help the team to deliver on time and under budget, right? Ahead of time, actually, ahead of time, deliver early and deliver under budget should be the goal that we set for ourselves. And it should, and you don't sacrifice customer satisfaction for that, right? But, and trust me, if you can deliver good software early and cheap, then the customer will be very satisfied at your efficiency and at the quality of software that you're delivering, right? But let's keep going a little bit, right? So now the development is done and you already have your test plan, so you know what to test, right? And you go through it and so now you're testing manually. So you're testing it manually and you're making sure that everything is working, right? And everything is working. But if you do it properly, right, while the developers are doing their implementation, you should be able to start on your automation as well so that you're not trying to play catch up. And you get to as far as you can. So now when the development is ready, you can just start plugging things in here, plugging things in there, based on what the outcome is. So now once it's done, you go ahead and you make sure you verify that everything is working as it should be working, right? And once that's done, you update your automation tests and you run your automation tests, right? To make sure that it's capturing everything. You make the necessary adjustments that you need to do, make sure things are working. And if you do automation right, a lot of the things that you use as you build out the software, as you build out your automation, should be reusable, right? With the state of the automation projects that I work on now, I barely have to add a lot of code to it because a lot of the steps, a lot of the features are reusable, and I can just go in there and say, okay, I need to add this. I need to add this method here so we can do this, and I'll add like one or two methods, and then we can go in and we just have a whole nother test, and a whole nother test that is using a lot of the different functionalities because a lot of the paths are similar, right? And then now we just insert the new methods that are relevant to this particular test, right? And that's how you can build a testing framework, a test suite, right? That is going to be very accurate and useful for running regression tests and all that type of stuff, right? So that is an example of how you would add value to the team and how you would work as a QA engineer within the team. And like as soon as like as part of the story should be your automation test, and that gets put as part of the story, as part of the repo, as part of the code, and you put that together, and now you don't have to worry about it. So now, when there's changes that are made, you just run your regression test, or you run them nightly, whatever the cadence is, right? And you run that, and you can see that things are working, right? You don't have to go through 20 tests every time there is a deployment and stuff like that. And if something does slip through the cracks, you fix it and you add your automation regression test for that as well, right? That is like, and that goes back to why I don't talk about manual testing that much, right? Because it is not like, to me, it's a part of it, but it's not even the main part of it, right? And it does add value, but the comprehensive value that you can add as a QA engineer is what we should be striving for, right? I see so many times that people who are in QA, right, they're talking about, oh, they don't feel valued, they don't do this, they don't do that. Like they feel like the developers don't respect them and all that type of stuff. And I say that is entirely on you, right? It's your fault that you're feeling that way because you don't insert yourself. When Here is a life lesson. When you are sitting around waiting for people to invite you in to make you feel valued, you will never get it. You need to insert yourself, right? You need to make yourself valuable and show your value to whatever it is that you're doing, right? But specifically in the software industry, if if a developer doesn't say anything, right, and they just sit around and take directions from everybody else, they're going to be feeling undervalued and they're going to be looked at as someone who doesn't add much value because they don't put input, they don't share their thoughts, and they just sit back and they're just waiting for instructions. And maybe you could have gotten away with that back in the days, but not anymore, right? We always thought, right, and I thought this too, that the software industry, like being a developer, being QA, it was meant for people who don't talk, people who are introverts and stuff like that. And I learned that wow, they can make it through. The people who get the most success are the ones who are very technical, but they are also willing to go outside of their shell, their introverted shell, and speak and add value and be able to navigate. Because while you can write cool code, if nobody knows what you're doing, then it only gets you so far, right? So I say that we need to stop like hoping for one little thing, right? Like, oh, I'm taking this manual testing course, whether it's on Udemy or it's a boot camp. Where if it's a boot camp, you're probably paying a lot of money for it, right? And then you think that, like, do some research, right? You've seen on our live streams where I search for like manual testing jobs, and it's almost non-existent, right? And if it does exist, let's all right, let's do math real quick, right? If there are thousands of people going into a boot camp for manual testing, right? And there are less than 1,000 manual testing jobs available. and they want you to have experience. You have these thousands of people who don't have the necessary experience, right? Who do you choose to get that for that position, right? Because they all have the same knowledge, right? Who do you choose? So now, now that the market is being saturated with people who are applying for these manual testing jobs, then what happens is the companies, because there's so much to choose for, they up the requirements. So now you feel that everything you just did to get this education was meaningless because the market became saturated and now it became a employer's market, and they up the ante of what are the requirements they need, and they say, okay, now you need to have 3 to 5 years of experience for entry level, and you're like, that's not really entry level. Well, guess what? Because of this of the saturation, they get to define what entry level is. You know, it's the same way as the housing market or as the car market, whatever. When the value of used cars were skyrocketing, right? That was a seller's market. But then as it goes down, right? And you can't sell your used car for as much anymore, right? Like when the housing market, when the demand goes down, you know? So so that's the point. Like the point that I'm making is that you need to navigate carefully, and you need to say, all right, I got like pretty much don't be proud of just doing the basic, right? Good job, you went through, you got your certification, whatever, but you need to the look at your competitors. That's what they are. The people who are like the thousands of people taking the Udemy course, the thousands of people who are in the boot camps, like if you're in like one of those cohorts of 20 people, right? But there's boot camps happening all across the world, right? I can list to you a bunch of boot camps, right? And every 6 weeks or so, they're getting a new round of people coming in. Though they are not your friends. They're not your friends. They are your competitors. And you need to look at what they're doing. It's probably the same thing as you, right? And you need to say, okay, I need to step up my game, right? And how do you step up your game, right? You are going to have to do something different from them. And I would encourage you, right? Start learning automation. And but guess what? There's thousands of people learning automation as well, right? Well, so start learning automation, right? Dive into Docker. Like we just finished up our series talking about Docker, and we are going to do a live stream about it. But start looking into Docker, right? Start playing around with AWS. AWS even gives you from a certain tier, I think it's the micro or something like that. They give you I think 750 hours free for your first year, right? So you can start playing around with that, seeing how that works. Take a course on AWS, right? Just do like you see we're going through Terraform on a live stream, right? Just go through different types of softwares, and why? You don't have to be an expert in them, right? But you do need to have something that you can talk about, show that you're pushing yourself, show that you have initiative, because without the experience, it's going to be hard. But if you can like speak to somebody, get into an interview and say, okay, I know this, that, and the other. I'm working on this, I'm working on that. Here's my QA portfolio. Like, build your QA portfolio. Do the stuff that everyone else isn't doing. I'll tell you this. There are people who've been doing QA engineering for a very long time, right? Who don't who don't do half the things I'm talking about, right? So you need to stand out. You need to put yourself forward. Stop caring about what everybody else is doing. They don't exist. They don't exist, right? Just know that you need to do more than what you're doing now, and you need to be doing more than what everybody else is doing. And that's how you're going to stand out, and that's how they're going to take a chance on you. But there's another thing, right? How do you market yourself? Because you can be doing all of this stuff, but if you can't market yourself, then it doesn't mean anything. So that means you got to get your resume right. You need to show the value that you're adding. You don't just list like I've seen so many resumes from people from a boot camp, and it's just like, oh, I write test cases. Oh, I execute test cases. Oh, I went to stand up. Who cares? Nobody cares about that because as somebody who works for a large company, right? The things you're listing, that's the expectation. I don't care. Like, I expect you to do that. I need to know the amazing things that you have done, right? In your previous companies and the amazing things that you plan on doing if hired at my company or, you know, like if I was to hire you, right? What are the amazing things that you're going to be doing here, right? And that is and that is how you should be approaching your resume and the interview, right? And you have to also ask good questions, right? My In the Patreon, I have a video talking about what type of questions you should ask when they ask you that question that they always ask. Oh, do you have any questions for us? If you say no, that is a bad look. If you ask a question that's kind of meaningless, that is a bad look because it shows that you don't care or you're disinterested, right? Every single aspect of the process matters, right? And that's what I try to coach my people to know. Like, you have to be prepared from A to Z, right? Like, the more you're prepared, the better chances that you have, right? So that's what I want to leave you guys with, right? It's not, I don't talk about manual testing much because it's like I don't believe in it. It's not necessary. I totally believe in it. It's totally necessary. But to me, it's just a part of the process. And, it's something that you do, right? But you have to be a comprehensive QA engineer. Stop putting QA manual tester on your resume and stuff. You're a QA engineer. But although you're a QA engineer, you have to go out there and get the necessary skills. Start learning automation. Start looking into Docker. Like, just install it. Do something, right? Do something. And, continue to explore, right? Always looking to be learning something new. Get better, right? So that is our kind of conversations for today. I wanted to leave you with that to encourage you, to let you know to push forward, not to just do what everybody else is doing. Look at your competitors, look at what they're doing, and do more, offer more value, be the best. All right. That is our goal here, to be the best, to win. All right. So another episode of Candid Conversations. I am Tech Coach Ralph. Thank you for rocking with me today. And until next time, this is Tech Coach Ralph signing off.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos.
Enigmatic Joker.